Hi, today we're going to talk about type of test. So we have already talked about t-test and z-test in our previous sections. So when we want to estimate or ascertain population, mean of population, two famous tests are t-test and z-test. T-test should be used when we don't know the population variance and the samples which we are drawing from populations sample size greater than or equal to 30. So z-test should be used when we know the population variance. So far we talked about only one population, but in real life we have multiple population. For example, we have population of bonds, we have population of stocks. So they are tests when there are two normally distributed populations. So first one, the famous one we're talking about is t-test pooled variance. In this case, we are assuming there are two populations and samples which we are drawing from these populations are independent, and we are assuming the variance of the populations are equal. So in this case, we can pool this population data and can perform t-test on that population. So in case these two normal distributed populations samples are still independent, but the population's variance are not equal. In this case, we shouldn't be pooling their observation. We shouldn't pool these two populations observation. We rather perform two separate t-tests. So it's called t-test with variance not pooled. Sometime and when in last two um, tests we had a basic assumption these samples are independent, but if we get rid of that assumption and we say these samples are dependent, for example, universe of bond is dependent on interest rate, and stocks are also kind of dependent of interest rate. So the samples which we are drawing are kind of dependent on some common economic variables. In those cases, we should be taking the difference between the sample values and performing t-test based on those differences. So it's called t-test with paired comparisons. Uh, in these tests which we so far we talked about, we were measuring mean of population or mean of by using the mean of sample values, but we need to ascertain the population variance. In those cases, if there's one population we are ascertaining the population variance value, we can perform the chi-square test. And when we are comparing test of two population, when we are doing a variance comparison between two population, we should be doing the F test or F statistics. So as you see in the formula, is S1 square is a numerator, which is a sample from the first population, and S2 square is a sample variance from the second population. And we can look up these values, and in numerator we should put the sample which has the higher sample variance. So parametric tests are kind of tests where we're making the assumption about the population distribution, and non-parametric tests we do not make such assumptions. So we should only perform non-parametric tests when the data are not available for the parametric test. That's it. Okay.